When I saw the workflow tool, I was like, that's it. We're all in on Copy.ai. Because what Copy.ai uniquely does, I believe, really, is you can take any kind of a AI process that you could do on ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other models, bring it into Copy.ai, work it through so that it really works for you, and then you can just turn that into a workflow that runs automatically across all of your business systems.
I really appreciate you taking the time. Just take a couple minutes, brag about yourself. How often do you get invited to do that? Just shamelessly brag about who you are, where you work, and what you've done.
Yeah. So Brian Sowards founded my first product company as a teenager. I've been obsessed with entrepreneurship ever since, had a few good outcomes and gotten to work across a large variety of types of problems. So I've worked at the Microsoft's R&D lab and at LinkedIn and did some NGO and public policy work along with economic development. Really got to see organizations, everything from government to nonprofits to Fortune 10s to down to startups, how they organize and get work done. And frankly, saw a lot of pretty similar patterns in terms of the challenges people were having. And it's one of the reasons I'm super excited about Copy AI is I really feel like you guys have found a way to create a generalizable AI tool that can solve a lot of problems.
I just have to ask, I'll never forgive myself. You said you started your first company in high school as a teenager.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
have to know what that product was. I was so curious.
Yeah. So very first one, I've always been passionate about education. So it was an education product. A teacher had invented a new kind of font, handwriting font, and she had eliminated dyslexia from her classroom by teaching students to write with it because the letters were not inversions of each other as they are in Helvetica. So we created way back in the day on Macromedia Director, the precursor to Flash, we created a multimedia CD-ROM where kids could create their own handwriting assignments based on objects or ideas that they thought was interesting to try to make the assignments a little bit more engaging and give them a sense of agency in their work. So it was distributed into the Maryland school system, and it definitely gave me the bug to continue to do product development.
How old were you?
I think I was 17 at the time.
Oh, I wasted my teenage years on Mario Brothers. I'm sure of it now. I wasted them. That's great. Okay.
I wasted a fair amount on Mario Brothers myself.
Okay, good company then. And so I imagine out of all your years of experience, 2023 was a bit of a roller coaster just with all the AI stuff coming out. And now you're working with Copy AI. Can you talk just about how you're using the software to help your processes or your business?
For sure. For those that are in the tech industry, I was a SaaS founder before I realized that SaaS was inevitably going to get commoditized by AI. My first AI startup was in 2014 when chatbots were all the rage. And myself and all the other founders I was working with found out that 90% of the problems they needed to solve in order to wire up an AI for a company to do something useful were all business process automation. And so I became fascinated with the no code, low code movement, which is really what I've been doing for the last, let's see, all the way up until 2022, preparing for this evolution that we're seeing in generative AI. And when I first came across Copy AI, I was absolutely stunned because not only had Copy done a phenomenal job replicating the ChatGPT experience and improving upon it, doing the prompt enrichment that helps the average user who doesn't really understand there's all this high science behind how you communicate with GPT models. They can just put in what they want and Copy AI handled that prompt enrichment for them. But it was really the workflow tool that blew me away. When I saw the workflow tool, I was like, that's it. We're all in on Copy AI. Because what Copy AI uniquely does, I believe, really, is you can take any kind of a AI process that you could do on ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other models, bring it into Copy AI, work it through so that it really works for you. And then you can just turn that into a workflow that runs automatically across all of your business systems. And Drivetrain Revenue, my current consulting company, that is our entire thesis is go into an organization and change the way that the business operates so that it is feeding an AI that will get better and better over time.
All right. I have a two-part question for you. The first part is, as you've been building workflows, is there a workflow that you're allowed to talk about? I know not everyone can get into specifics. Is there a workflow you're allowed to talk about that you're particularly excited about?
I am excited about so many different workflows and happy to talk about all of them. And that is absolutely the plan, is to talk about hundreds of them in the coming year.
Yeah.
In fact, that's our core thesis. Our core thesis is that most of the investment in AI right now is happening at the infrastructure level, which is great. Thank you, NVIDIA. Thank you, OpenAI. We appreciate everybody that's pushing the bounds of what AI can do. And then we see a lot of SaaS tools or product companies trying to add AI on top of their SaaS workflows. What we see is this huge middle, which is just to repurpose every business function into an AI native process. And that's what Copy AI provides us the path to do. And as we heard from one SaaS leader, I thought we had more time. It turns out that AI has the ability to deliver a very significant percentage of what human beings do, copying and pasting. Let's be real, that's what most of SaaS is. Copying and pasting information from one place to another.
Yeah.
AI will just do that for you. Let me talk about a couple of the workflows that I really love. Let me start with the most accessible. I think the most accessible one is you can go right into Copy AI, give it a LinkedIn profile, and say, analyze this person and tell me, what should I talk about if I want to become their friend? And you'll get a bunch of recommendations of what to write. And I think this is one of the things that will be surprising to anyone that's not using AI every day. AI writes better than you. Absolutely writes better than you.
Thank
If it's writing worse than you, it's because you don't know how to communicate with it. But I would say 95% of the time, if I see an AI output that's auto-generated, I like it more, I connect with it more than I do with what people are sending every day. And that's because the dirty little secret behind writing is time, and everybody is constantly trying to minimize the amount of time that they spend writing. So the writing sucks. So I love Copy AI for just giving me great things to say to people that frankly is more thoughtful than I might have been able to write in the 2 minutes it took me to drop that URL in and look through the options. So I think that's a great first introduction to Copy AI. I'd love to tell you about my favorite workflow though.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
All right. So my favorite workflow actually speaks to what I believe the future of AI is for business operations. And that is a workflow that will listen in on a sales call. It will take everything from the sales call transcript. It will analyze the entire conversation, and it will pull out all of the things that are really helpful to salespeople. As someone who's been an AE and an SC myself, busting through my quota attainment, thankfully, in a number of cases, one of the things that I know is that every high performing AE is just running from one meeting to the next and then trying to squeeze in those updates to Salesforce about the meeting notes, trying to update leadership, trying to keep everybody appraised of where things are, ask for help, all that good stuff. And it's a lot of communication effort. With this copy workflow, you just set it up with your Salesforce. It takes that call transcription and it maps so many interesting and really valuable things. And it has multiple benefits to it. I'll just highlight a couple. So number one is it can tell you who was mentioned on the call that wasn't on the call. That is super powerful for multi-threading. It's the easiest piece of information to lose track of. And it's often the people that aren't on the call that the AE really needs to cultivate the relationship with. And if you don't, it comes back to haunt you at time to close. So that's one of my favorite triggers that's in there. The other thing is that it can go through and it can analyze it with MedPick, Medic, whatever sales model that you like to apply. Another huge benefit of AI, we don't have to be model dependent in sales anymore. We can pick whichever one we like. It'll go through, it'll analyze it, and it will classify the call based on, was there an economic buyer discussion? Was there a decision maker discussion? Was there a pain point surfaced? Were there objections? All of that, what we really always believed CRM was for, to log all of that information into a database we could reference later, that's being done for you by the AI. And here's why this is my favorite workflow, is because every sales leader that sits down with their team and has a weekly forecast call with the CFO, what they're all trying to do is sweat the team to figure out which deals are really going to close and which ones aren't. And the truth is, everybody's pipeline criterions are super soft. They have a ton of drift in them. I won't say everybody's. We've got a few people on our circle of advisors who have got this tuned to a science, but 99.9% of the tech companies that do enterprise sales that I've worked with have very soft sales pipeline, discovery, solution, contracting, and so on. And when the weekly forecast moves to the end of the quarter, those deals just kind of slide from one side to the other. And the beauty of this Copy AI workflow is instead of qualifying your forecast based on an approximation of some pipeline buckets that may or may not be fully defined, you can actually just drill in on a deal and say, oh, okay, we've got our economic buyer, we've got our pain point, but we don't have a sign off from the internal champion who's going to be the technical user of this solution. That's the thing we need to go focus on to get this deal done. Or we've got our champion, we've got our economic buyer, but we don't have executive sponsorship, and procurement's not responding to any of our champions' emails. We need to go elevate this and get some executive sponsorship. Let's get the CEO in on this. Enabling your forecast calls and your pipeline discussions to be diagnostic, and that you don't have to rely on conversation to get that information. You can literally just go look in Salesforce and see where you actually are, is a game changer in this new world where we have to be extremely efficient and extremely accurate in order to win the deal.
Oh yeah, and that use case has got our team super excited too, because it's one of those, like you said, especially an AE is moving from meeting to meeting. They don't have time to do the notes, but then also if they're busy taking notes on the call, they're not really actively listening anymore. They're just taking notes, trying to sell like a salesperson rather than just listening, talking like a solution specialist and trying to move that further on. It's really impressive. Have you guys found any good marketing use cases out of it yet?
Oh yeah, this is like the mothership from
I'm
my
so
perspective. Is once you get Copy AI connected to your sales transcriptions, you now have essentially a data feed of what your customers and prospects are talking about. And I would say 95% of the conversations I've seen at a sales leadership level are often opining about those things. Oh, maybe this customer doesn't feel this way because maybe this deal hasn't moved forward because, and you can shift it from imagining what you think is going on with the customer to being diagnostic. The customer said, the customer didn't say. And when you start doing that at scale, which is easy to do with transcription, now you get to do things like say, across the 500 sales calls we've had this month, what's the number one value proposition that people have resonated with that we don't have any marketing content for?
That's
Boom. I think a lot of marketers are still in the phase where they're essentially defending their discipline from AI. We don't want to use AI to write content. We want it to be high quality content. And I have no disagreement with that. I've run a few marketing agencies myself and a few marketing teams. And I do think that there's a ton of value to having extremely well-informed experts in your space define the content that wins. However, as we all know in marketing, man, the amount of work involved in getting to that final destination is just so intense. And I don't know a single CMO or VP of marketing who isn't constantly asking sales and customer success and product, what are people talking about? What should we be writing about? What's the topic of conversation that's happening this month, this quarter, this year? And you can ask the AI that question, and it will not only give you the answers, it will source it based on the actual calls. I love that you've added sourcing into the Copy AI workflow. It's so powerful.
Wish I could say that I did that, but yeah, our team did that. They did it brilliantly. Yeah, I'm just the marketer. I'm like a monkey using this stuff. It's ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. It is funny, and it is. I love that you said earlier. You said that it just does things better. It's a better writer than you are. And one thing that I had never connected the dots on this. You do hear a lot of marketers talking about they're able to produce better written content or whatever. But the way that you phrased it earlier shifted that for me because a lot of you could, sure, but can you do that at 3:30 on a Thursday afternoon after you're exhausted, you've been up all night and you don't always have that, you burn out pretty quickly.
Mm.
And I'm noticing that AI is taking a lot of the burnout away from the grunt work. Are you finding that your team is enjoying using the tools? Are they finding it a little more fun and creative, or are they struggling to get the implementation in as well?
They've definitely gone through their adoption effort. I think anytime we talk about a completely net new tool, there's just a couple weeks for most people where it just feels a little awkward to get yourself in there and use it to solve the problem you're having right now. It's human nature, right? we've got a problem, we need to solve it, we're used to solving it in a certain way. It just feels less effortful to do what you know than it does to do something new. And then that magic moment happens where they go, you know what? And I tried Copy AI this time, and it took me 2 minutes. What was I thinking? Why wasn't I just using Copy AI to solve this problem? And so I think the adoption curve is there for everyone. As a partner of Copy AI, we embrace that. We build our whole education program around getting people into the details of using Copy AI to solve problems. Because even if we're ultimately going to wire it up as an automated workflow, if you understand the underlying way that it works, we've seen that people are more bought in. They give better feedback. They know to ask for changes when they think they might be able to prove the results in some way. You create this wonderful feedback loop when you really get into the tool. So yeah, our team is loving it. We're producing content. We're using it to solve problems. We've actually rewired our entire internal architecture so that we can ship a Copy AI workflow into our system whenever we want. And last week we did it in 1 hour. So we're basically building internal AI apps on the fly based off
Oh,
of Copy AI workflows.
this is awesome. This is great. Okay, I'm not going to steal too much more of your time. It's the week leading into the holidays, so everyone's like digging deep for motivation. But I do appreciate your time. And I had one last question for you. It's not related to AI, but I think people would find it interesting. Either your first or worst job and a lesson that's carried with you through today from that terrible experience.
My first or my worst job? Both of those are pretty fun. For a hot minute, when I lived in San Francisco, I worked for an art gallery, and they sold like cliches and like manufactured art products to people who just won big down at the Embarcadero and needed to splurge a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was all like trying to like romance people into buying a piece of junk, basically. It's what the job. I
Good.
didn't know.
Cool.
I didn't know when I applied for the job. That's what it was. But as I learned, I was like, oh, so none of these things actually have any intrinsic value. We're just selling to drunk, wealthy people. Got it. And I didn't do very well on the sales floor unless I was really tuned in with just one person. I didn't tend to work the crowd as much. So I went and built a website as my own personal selling platform.
Nice.
And the GM fired me, and the owner tried to hire me back to go work at it. He was like, no, you're a hustler. I want you to go do that for us at another location. I was like, you know what? I think I'm good. I get it. Technology is not your thing. I'd say probably the best lesson I learned from this is that I think it's pretty natural for all of us in the world to just not be quite sure how we can add the most value, where we can do something that we really love and we feel good about what we do each day. And I've learned that's really worthwhile to just really zoom in on. My favorite book is called The Big Leap. And this concept has become much more popular. But Gay Hendricks, the author of the book, talks about this idea of your zone of genius, that there's just things that you do as a person that give you energy and create a lot of value for other people. But for you, they feel so easy that maybe they don't feel like work. And so you tend to, I certainly have, I've tended to focus on jobs where I was excellent, but it was a grind. And I've really spent the last 5 years of my life retooling how I interact with the world to notice those places where people say, wow, that was really valuable. And I think, oh, I was just doing a thing.
Really.
Anytime that shows up in my life, I go, okay, I'm going to go do some more of that. So that's my favorite lesson I learned from the job I like the least.
I love that. That's great. The Big Leap, you said. I'm going to check that book out. That's
Big Leap by
fantastic.
Gay Hendricks. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll wrap up with one final thought, Nathan. You mentioned burnout, and I think this fits into kind of our mission, like why we do what we do. And that's that human beings are these creative, problem-solving, hardworking people. Like I get to work with so many amazing people as clients and customers and partners, and I see so many people just really have a lot to offer, but so much of their day is consumed with stress and just moving things through the pipe. Just the cognitive load of just
Yep.
dealing with the business of life and doing your job. And that's what I truly believe AI today has to offer us, is that we can spend more of our time as the human in the loop, as the professional, as the expert, as the person who's just the best at what we do. And we can wire up these amazing workflows to support us so that more of our energy is available to us during the day.
And okay, honestly, this is gonna sound like I'm just brown nosing or trying to agree, but I promise since I've started using workflows to offload some of the grunt work writing that I do, I call it tedious grunt work writing that I would normally have to do. I have so much more energy and patience for my family after work. Like my kids, I could just I don't have the weight of the day, and I don't have this deadline of I have to finish this draft by 9 tonight, so I got to miss bedtime with my kids. It's done. The draft is good. I can polish it much faster. Let's go read Winnie the Pooh and see what happens. That's fine. I love that optimistic view. I think it's the way forward, in my view. Okay. Sorry, that was my little soliloquy at the end, but please take the last 30 seconds if you wouldn't mind and just remind us what makes you so awesome. Brag about yourself again, your company, where can people find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find us at drivetrainrev.com. What we do is we help companies convert their go-to-market operations into AI native operations. So if you'd like to see your team be way more efficient, your top performers be way more productive, and the things that you learn transmit faster through your organization so you evolve and grow in a more efficient way, that's what we do.